This is the Beyond the Story podcast, a show that goes way beyond the story.
And now, Sebastian Ross!
I think that's my cue to start the show. Thanks so much, the wonderful and one and only Mr. Michael B., the voice of our beloved Miami Heat. So on the show today, I met this individual through a YouTube ad, and he was doing a spinoff on the marketer Ty Lopez, and he happened to be at the same conference that I was emceeing, which was Traffic and Conversions in San Diego, and he renamed himself conveniently Chandler Lopez in front of a bunch of Lambos and Bentleys, and I thought it was absolutely hysterical. So I immediately connected with him and have been following him for the past 2 years, watching him and his brand continue to grow, and it's just been a great, fun opportunity to be able to engage with this individual online. Friends, please help me welcome to the show Chandler Bolt.
Sebastian, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's great to have you on the show here, man. You're a busy guy. So I always say, you know, a guy like you is not really that available. Your team is, but yeah. You're not, and by design. So much respect for that, and that's great. You got your people handling it. No, I'm just kidding. But I've been following your content both personally and professionally on here. You're big on goals. You don't like ricotta with your pancakes and fruit, right? I mean, come on. I mean, listen, you got to know your audience here, right? Right. And then from that too, we were just chatting before we started recording. Your brother's in one of my favorite bands, Need to Breathe, and he built this ridiculous tree house in South Carolina, right?
Yeah. There's 5 of them in South Carolina, the Bolt Farm tree houses. They're luxury, romantic kind of tree houses.
Wow.
And they're building that into a full business. So it's been cool.
That's fantastic. There's a link in the show notes. You want to check and go rent yourself a tree house. I highly consider you doing that. So let's back up a little bit. You own a brand called Self-Publishing School. You are a self-published author 6 times over yourself, correct? 7 times over, correct?
6. Yep.
6 times over. Okay. So let's back up to, first of all, how you got started. Did you go to school? What did you go to school for? Did you go to work and then transition to entrepreneur? Let's back up and help our audience really understand where, how you got to present day Chandler Bolt.
Yeah. So I'm kind of always wanted to be an entrepreneur from a tiny town in the middle of nowhere in South Carolina. Your audience is probably almost no one has heard of. It's tiny, but I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but when you grow up in a small town, it's like you got 5 options. You can be an accountant, you can be a doctor, you can be a janitor, you can be like the closest thing they could tell me was financial advisor.
Right.
And so I actually shadowed in high school. And looking back, I'm like, I would have hated that job. But as someone who is like, oh, entrepreneur, that's not really on the chart here. What
right.
about financial advisor, right? So I went to school, college at Charleston, to learn how to run a business. I quickly discovered I was learning how to run a business from professors who had never run a business. And that didn't make too much sense to me. So I dropped out. And I'd already ran multiple businesses. I ran a house painting company in college through a company called Student Painters. If you ever heard of like Student Painters, College Pro Painters, sure. College Works, there's a bunch of different companies, but Student Painters, it was the hands down the best experience I've ever had. It's an internship. It's basically a franchisee program where they teach you how to run a business by running a house painting company. So my first year, so you're painting houses. So my first year, I was number 1 in the company, number 1 in the whole country. And then that gave me the confidence to drop out of school, wrote and published a book about that same time, did another book. Then people started asking about, I was like working on a business that was just totally failing.
Right.
Meanwhile, people kept asking about books and, hey, how are you doing this? Can you help me? And I get on the phone with them for an hour for free and teach them everything I knew. And, I would imagine similar to probably your early days with podcasts. People
sure.
are like, hey, how are you doing this podcast?
Yeah.
And you just get on to be a nice person. And then finally you realize like, oh man, this is a business.
Sure.
Like I should be charging for this.
Right.
And let's give it a go. So that's how we launched Self-Publishing School. We had our first cohort of 44 students, then replicated that success in other people. And then that was when the light bulb was really on. Because, you do it yourself and you're like, I don't know, can I help other people do this though? I haven't really proven that yet.
Yeah.
So then you do that. And then you say, all right, I've got the confidence to really scale this.
Sure.
And let's go and scale and build. So, to present day, we've helped thousands of people publish a book. So we've had I think over 5,000 students go through the program, and just continuing to iterate and improve, and grow,
I love
and grow businesses through books.
I love that. But what I love more though is, and another thing, we tried chatting about a bunch of stuff before we started recording. But your TED Talk randomly popped up on my television at home on a Sunday afternoon. I was like, hot damn! I've been meaning to watch this anyway, and it was an incredible story. I want to talk about that story in a second here, but I want to lead with saying that you realized through your entire story that helping someone write a book is hands down one of the biggest and best things you could ever do to contribute to the well-being of not only an individual's life, but the individuals of hundreds of millions of people's lives, because you just don't know what the impact of that book is going to be. And I love that because in my opinion, it's about legacy. That's what I'm doing this for. I'm doing this for the
Yes,
love of the game
100%.
and for my daughter to say,
100%.
hey, to tell her kids, this is who your granddad is. You know, this nut with a bow tie, this is what he did. And he helped people start what is now modern day radio. The shows that you listen to, your dad created, right? Not doing it from an ego standpoint, but knowing that I'm enabling people. And I already feel that. And I know you experience that too, because you're taking someone from A to B. And that is just an unbelievable feeling from, I can't write a book to just published, right?
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of power in that. So let's chat a little bit about the TED Talk and how that came about, but more importantly, the story that you gave, with the TED Talk.
Yeah. So, the TED Talk came about I work with Taylor Conroy at the Idea Collective, and he actually spoke at our live event last year, Author Advantage Live, and it was okay. We see this as a customer acquisition tool for self-publishing school and a way to get the message out, right? Like it was and is an important message of leveraged impact, and that's what I talk about in the TEDx talk. But so and we felt like, so probably the reason you saw it is because it's starting to go viral. It's getting about 1,000 views a day.
Wow.
And if you search how to write a book on YouTube, I think it shows up number 2 or number 3, depending on the day and depending on who's searching. So now this will be a tool to teach the methodology of what, kind of at a big picture. And then a lot of times they'll go from there to the book published and get the book. And then a lot of times they'll either go to the book or they'll go straight to self-publishing school, book a call with my team, end up signing up for self-publishing school. So it's a way to educate, inspire, and bring in lead sales for self-publishing school. And then the story, which you mentioned, which is super important on my journey, is I had a friend kind of tragically pass away years ago on a cruise ship. And it just totally changed the trajectory of my life. And actually, so that's when I got this bracelet on one side. And I talk about this I think it's the last chapter of my book published, but one side it says make him proud. The other side it says WWKD. So what would Kendall do? That was his name. And so that kick started, I think we have these moments in life where, you have something crazy happen and then you realize that life is short. And so I think the big thing for me is I started living with a sense of urgency and living for two, because for me, it was the night before he passed away. We talked about his dreams and goals and 5-year goals. And I'm like, oh shoot, he's not going to be able to achieve any of those goals. I am now living for two. Right. And so I think that really gave me a sense of urgency and then a sense of perspective, which is there's a whole lot of things that I'm spending time on right now and focus on that just don't matter.
Right.
And there's only a handful of things that actually do matter. My family, my friends, my faith, like and this business, which is helping people. It's actually like this at the time I was like, this is the one thing I feel like I'm doing that's like really making the world a better place, is helping people write and publish books. And so that was when we kind of doubled down and launched self-publishing school, and ever since then it's just been growing like crazy.
That's great, man. What a great story. What a great way to, and I commend you for leveraging your story and saying, I'm willing to step up and rise up on behalf of and in respect of and what for my friend and relationship I had. And you said his book was done and never got a chance to get it published too.
Well, so they actually, I didn't know this, but this is the crazy part of the story is he had attended one of my random webinars and gotten most of a draft done from that. I didn't even know. And his friends, and actually Hunter, who you've talked to
Yeah.
on my team, Hunter was actually there when all this happened. And him and another friend were able to publish Kindle's book after Kindle passed away.
Wow.
And so that was kind of like this crazy thing that happened in the midst of all that was even more of a sign for me of like, oh man,
Ah,
that is doing something. So let me trim a lot of the fat in my life and focus on that and focus on the things that are most important.
you mentioned faith a couple minutes ago. How does your faith apply and come into play with your business and a brand? Because there's a lot of opinions out there. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a diehard, sold out, non-negotiable, unshakable lover of Jesus, but that's just how I roll, and I talk about it vocally all the time without making people crazy about it. But how does that apply? How does your faith play into your everyday business and brand?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough, man, because I'm in the same boat, and I'm a Christian, and obviously my brother, they're a I would say they're most similar to like the Fray or
Yeah,
something
yeah, like a
where it's like,
Switchfoot.
hey, they play inspiring music. They're
Sure,
not like quote unquote a Christian band, but
sure.
definitely you listen to like they're huge on Christian radio.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And a lot of their songs have that message, or
Sure.
will just straight up say it.
Right,
So
right, right,
I
right,
think
right.
they're all about going to the places where people would not come to listen to that,
Sure.
but they would listen, but it's good music. And
Right,
that's what I
right,
think sometimes when you think about like, oh, they're a Christian band,
right.
immediately people are like, oh, music probably sucks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like
But it's like,
Striper.
so
Yeah.
they want to have good music that stands alone, that has a great message. And I
Sure.
feel like I have kind of a similar approach with my business, and which I think a lot of the underpinning principles of the business and how I run the business and all those things are faith elements or
Sure.
things that my parents taught me and
Yep.
that I learned growing up. At the same time, one big thing for me is, and what I'm always kind of cognizant of, and probably too much so, is I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. Like
Sure.
if people feel like I am judging them
Sure.
because of the way that they choose their life, I think that's
Yeah.
not cool.
Right.
And so it's like for me, it's this delicate balance of is my faith is very important to me. I embed this in what I'm doing. There's a lot of great principles, and if anyone wants to ask about it and talk about it,
That's exactly
absolutely.
it,
Like
dude.
I'm totally down. And then this has even been interesting on a leadership perspective internally as a company, because that is like, okay, if we're doing like company Bible study or like company things like that, it's like, okay, I've gotten some mixed feedback from mentors and people on that, where it's like, okay, look, the fundamental principles are there. But if you're making people feel uncomfortable being employed at your company because they are not that thing, then I think,
Sure.
me personally, I think that's crossing the line of what I'm comfortable with and how I choose to run my business.
Yeah.
But I mean, absolutely, like it's a huge part of how I make decisions and what we focus on and things like that.
Yeah, I had a buddy tell me I spent a lot of time in Nashville last year, and I went to go see him. He used to work at a church down here. He now works for Lifeway Publishing in Nashville, and small operation. And he bought a Tesla recently, but base model. But he's like he's in a band. He's a musician. I'm like, Tesla? And he's like, listen, they're not that expensive. They're like high 30s, like 38 grand. You can get your like a base model one. He's like, but I was driving this old beater truck, and like the thing's almost dying. And he just picked me up from the airport. We're going to get a bite to eat, and he said, but before I make big decisions, I always like to get a piece from God that I'm making like the right decision. And you know what that piece is. Like it just hits you and you're like, we're good. He's like, well, dude, I've seen the car. I was going to go test drive the car the whole night and nothing's showing up. And I'm like, where are you, dude? Nowhere at all. So finally the guy calls in and to go test drive one of these things, you schedule an appointment and like this whole the whole rigmarole. Anyway, so the guy finally calls. He goes, yeah, you can come in. He goes, we're about to close, but we can get the test drive done. And he's like, all right, cool. It's like 7:30 at night. He gets in his car, gets to the first stoplight, truck dies. So I said, man, that was all this. So I've been implementing that ever since, going, listen, if this is not supposed to happen, just
Right.
don't allow it to happen. I mean, that's going to take place anyway. Sometimes we like to be a little, go against the grain with that whole process. But I'm in the same boat as you. I look at myself as a vehicle to the foot of the cross, whatever that cross may be and whatever that looks like for you. And that I've seen too much. And based on how I was raised, plus life showing up, I've seen too much to not have faith. And my faith drives me, and it's a central part of my life. And again, just like you said, I never enforce it upon anybody. If someone asks me, more than happy to chat with them about it. And I do run my business with the same type of foundations and that are on there. But having that principle, and I'm sure this has happened to you too. It's like, hey, remember that one time you sent me that one link? Well, I ended up reading it, and I'll never forget. I had a gig in New York City. One of the speakers was from London. He worked for Adobe at the time. Super cool dude. We went out, drinks, hung out the whole nine, and I was posting about. We were trying to start a church here about 5 years ago. Terrible idea. We failed miserably, but I said, "Hey, listen, you live in London. There's a really cool church called Hillsong London. You should go check it out, right?" He's like, "Okay, mate, whatever." So like 6 months later, he messages me and he goes, "Hey, man, I actually looked up that place. I went and got a Bible. I'm not going to give this whole thing a shot, man. Like, I love God." And I'm like, "Rock and roll, dude." I'm like, "Holy cow, maybe." So like, I mean, it's almost like unplanned evangelism, because I'm a recovered Baptist. So, I'm not into, knocking on doors with bad suits and dimples and telling people they're going to hell. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you've written
100%. I love that.
I love the fact that I loved your answer as well too. Of course, everyone loves when we agree with each other, of course, but at the same time, I mean, have you seen what Pete Vargas is doing lately with this Rise Up challenge?
100%. Yeah, he's a good buddy of mine. Yeah.
I mean, I've not personally met him. Tony Grebmeyer, Tony with Ship Offers?
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, he introduced me.
Coming on his podcast here soon. He's a self-publishing school student as well.
He's awesome, dude. That guy, man, heart of gold, dude. Absolute heart of gold.
Next time you see him, ask him when he's going to finish his book.
I'm going to text him as soon as we we hang up.
Yeah,
he introduced me to Pete. I haven't had a chance to actually meet Pete in person, but man, I've gotten a good dose of him over the past week with what he's doing here and just going to show another solid guy, very vocal about his faith and just doesn't care. And which I believe, I'm trying to get rich and take over, and not in that order, so that I can have a platform to be able to do similar things, not to be talk about me. I don't care about me. I just believe that my story is one that can shift people's mindset and change their lives, which we've all got one, right?
100%.
So speaking of stories, we're going to get into the most current matter of affairs here, which is your most recent book. That's a pretty cover. You guys are real good at covers over there.
Thank you.
Published. It's called The Proven Path. I'm reading it backwards because my camera on here. The Proven Path from Blank Page to Published author. So we're going to talk about this in a second, but I want to back up because you wrote 6 books before this book, so you're clearly lazy.
Well, I mean, the unlikely author is what I would call it. Like C-level English student, college dropout. So I always joke that if I can do it, you definitely can.
Sure.
And I did it in a short amount of time. And it's a lot of the process we talk about, and a lot of what I teach in that book is the mind map outline right process to getting your book done. But that was a crazy few years. And this is what I love about books, is that if you don't want to talk about something for a while, you can just write the book on it. Like I always talk to business owners, and it's like, okay, your first book is often the thing that you're tired of talking about.
Right.
You write the book on it, and then you never have to talk about it again. You just point to the book and say, get the book.
Right.
And so I still love talking about books and using books to grow business, but at the same time, I'm just going to keep pointing to published because I think it's the best book I've written, and I want people to learn and understand the methodology. So it's this thing. And just like, you were at, it was Podfest, and my team is there giving out books. And so that's like,
I didn't have a choice. I had no choice.
Yeah.
Like, take the book and keep moving,
have you got the book yet?
Yeah.
That's the question. And that's the conversation starter, right?
Right.
And then now all of a sudden you're in a conversation with the team, and then a lot of people end up booking appointments with the team and then end up signing up for self-publishing school. So a book is the start of the conversation, I believe. And we use it and give it away like candy everywhere, because it starts the conversation, and it leads to more leads, sales, and referrals for your business.
I wrote my first book like 4 years ago, and I'll never forget, my publisher told me that this is your new business card. And he said, people never throw away books. They might throw away a CD. They might throw away some white papers. They'll delete your email. The hand sanitizer is eventually going to run out. People don't use flash drives anymore. So it will always, and I never forgot that. And then I learned from my buddy, Jack Daly. He's a sales trainer. And Jack said, what you do is you get a stack of books when you're traveling, and you take a picture with the top sellers in the book in the gift shops. You put your book right there, take a picture with it, and be like, holy cow, all over the Miami airport. And then you also leave a few copies. Your students may be able to use this. This was golden advice. Take a couple copies in your backpack, leave them in first class, right? You ever met somebody in first class doesn't read, and leave a little note in there that says, hey, I don't know if you read or not, but I'm back in 17C, and I help people start podcasts. In the event you want to chat about this, I'm I'm available to. And even if you don't make that connection, you're still like guerrilla marketing on there. And to be able to,
That's awesome.
yeah.
I love that.
Hey, we got an 8-hour flight. I don't know if you're interested in podcasts at all, but here's a copy of my book, and I'll be back in 15C with a cocktail. Yeah.
That's amazing.
But that was some of the best advice that I really had ever gotten. Jack Nicholson's a fan of the show. I told him that he needs to write a book. You know what he told me?
I eat breakfast 300 yards from 4,000 Cubans who are trained to kill me, so don't think for 1 second that you can come down here, flash a badge, and make me nervous.
All right, take it easy, Jack. Maybe he's been at home a long. Maybe he's been home too long. All right, so publish, the proven path from blank page to publish author, your most recent project on here. Would it be safe to say if someone read this book, they would have everything they need in order to publish a book in a weekend?
100%. Yeah, 100%. It's the 10,000 foot view of our process. And so if you're looking for the cliff notes to get started and to get started quickly, that's the best place to start.
Yeah, I am. This is my next book of choice. You read a lot of books. You're quite the reader too, aren't you? No?
A lot. Yeah. And so funny. I mean, going from college dropout, someone who hated reading, hated writing, and was not good at either, to now I run a school, self-publishing school, and read a lot and help get a lot of books published. I read about a book a week now because, wow, man, it's like, to me, it's a $15 mentor. This is like, people always complain about, oh, I can't find a mentor. Or how do you find a mentor? It's like the smartest, most successful people on the planet. Most of them have written books, and they spent years of their life saying, what's the most helpful thing that I could teach someone? And how do I distill that into something that someone could get that lesson, learn it very well in a handful of hours? Well, for $15, they are now your mentor. So I when I dropped out of school, I said, I want to take a college dropouts approach to learning and pretend like I'm still in school for the next 2 years. And it just kind of caught on. And now, I read all these books, and like I'm 3 books in so far this month. And I'll read probably a couple more before the month's up. And I just love it because you can keep learning, you can keep improving.
You most definitely can. Well, I've been in touch with your team. We were chatting before the show started here, and I had just a strong interest in figuring out how we can work together. And I had a conversation with Matt on your team who handles your biz dev stuff. And we had thrown some ideas together. It was funny how it all came together. I posted who's hosting a virtual event, trying to find out how I can contribute, how I can speak or support the process, seeing who's in the community that's doing virtual events. And he replied, we're looking to sponsor them and podcast too. And I said, interesting. So I had added him on Facebook, and I was like, of course he's with self-publishing school, right? So we scheduled a call, and he's like, yeah, man, I'm the new guy in town, but handling biz dev, we're working on a few different things. And I had thrown out a few different ideas, and he said, well, I want you to understand our process on here. So let me get you out what we get people. Actually, I got it right here. Actually, for those of you listening, you're going to have to go to the show notes and click on the YouTube video and watch the replay on here. But I got my SPS package here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a package, ladies and gentlemen. This is your passport to book publishing. But let's open her up real quick here. I don't even think I opened it up. I thumbed through it when it first got here. But you got some certificates in here.
Yes.
Future
That's
author.
an accountability mechanism. You write your rough draft date, so you can see the blank. Whoa. My rough draft will be finished by date. And then that's something that you can hang up, and it's some public accountability for yourself.
You can also take a selfie and post it online.
Yes. That's what I was about to say. If you're bold enough to do that, then now you got public accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got, and then you kind of walk everybody through in a couple flyers, if you will, just to walk through. Yep. And I really felt like when I went through these first, and it says your first 30 days, this is what to expect. Yep. Welcome to our team from Chandler. Mm-hmm. Here's some golden tickets. Great marketing technique here. Golden tickets. You get $250, they get $250 off, right? Is that how that works?
Exactly. Yeah.
My
two-way referral program. Yep.
Two-way referral program. And then a journal. Is this a journal on here?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We just started adding that to the boxes. So that's check it out. So that's the 90-day author success journal. So this is it's a planner journal, whatever you want to call it.
Sure.
Day by day, to make consistent progress to get to achieving your number one author goal in the next 90 days. So maybe that's getting the draft done. Maybe that's publishing the book. Maybe that's launching a podcast off of your book, or whatever that thing is, using the journal to make daily consistent progress.
Love that. It's beautiful too. It's a real nice one too. It's not, they didn't send any over composition notebooks in here. And then Post-its. I mean, what are ideas without Post-its, right?
Mind mapping your book idea. Using the Post-its.
We got some stickers. Who doesn't want a good sticker? And then you got the phase one, right? I mean, this right here, look at this. Got the SPS Bible.
That's the workbook. Exactly.
That's what I meant. Yeah,
exactly.
I write in my Bible. That's a workbook too. Well, this is awesome. So if you're listening to this or you're watching a video, maybe you're watching one of the marketing promo videos that we posted or sent out on here, and you're thinking, holy cow, this is with such a time as this for me to run into this ad or this video or see this, and you're like, I want to publish a book, then be sure to check out the link in the show notes, selfpublishingschool.com. You can also reach out to me personally. I'd be more than happy to make a personal introduction to the team over at Chandler and his team over at SPS on here. But I'm definitely going to do my next book, which is, it was funny. I was telling Matt about this. This was an attempt at my second book. This is a glorified brochure. I got the idea from Lewis Howes and Grant Cardone, but then I realized, you know what? I'm not a brochure printer type of guy, and this book needs to have just what it says. Podcasts suck if you don't have one. A step-by-step guide to launching your podcast today, right? So stay tuned for that. I'm going to be a student here. Chandler doesn't know.
Awesome.
Chandler just found that out. So, all right, cool.
That's
beans
amazing,
here.
man. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. Well, hey, listen, I want to respect your time. I know you're doing back-to-back interviews today here to get this word, to get the good word out about Publish. Friends, you've been listening to for the past 45 minutes us chatting with Chandler Bolt. He's the founder of Self-Publishing School, and he's also the author of Published, How to Publish Your Book in a Weekend. So make sure you pick up a copy wherever books are sold, Amazon. I'm sure you can go to the website and get it. And man, Chandler, great to connect with you, dude. Thanks for carving out some time to hang out.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, man. We so believe in what you're doing and just podcasts as a mechanism. So anyone listening, like, I would just highly encourage you to consider a book, consider a podcast. We were mentioning right before the show, we just relaunched the Self-Publishing School podcast. We now have the 7-Figure Principles podcast, which is all about principles that I've learned from scaling and growing the company. So it's funny. We had this podcast that we didn't do anything with for a really long time. And then we realized it's getting thousands and thousands of downloads a month. And we're getting so many customers from it. So I just love what you're teaching people with podcasts. And it's something that we're bringing back with the Self-Publishing School podcast, with the 7-Figure Principles.
Yeah, say that fast 5 times. But well, we're going to link directly again in the show notes for anything we're referencing that you're maybe listening to right now. You feel like, oh, shoot, I don't have a pen. Not to worry. Just grab everything in the show notes, which is also known as the description of the podcast, wherever you are listening to the show. Maybe you're watching it on YouTube, or who knows where you ended up finding us on here. Well, Chandler, man, keep rocking and rolling, dude. I am really fired up and encouraged for what's possible with the Podcast Launch Lab and Self-Publishing School. I look forward to forging some sort of relationship with you guys. But I love the work you're doing, and I encourage you to keep it up and come back to the show, will you?
Awesome. Well, dude, thank you so much, Sebastian. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, buddy. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Beyond the Story podcast. Be sure to appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. Be sure to appreciate it. Signing off from the podcast, launchlab.com studios. We'll talk to you next time.